Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Any horror stories from the ER or paramedics or just first responders in general?
Yes, I'm a resident in a government hospital in Syria. We mostly get war injuries from northern villages, Turkish borders, and handle the locals in the coastal Latakian region. Couple of interesting stories, like the guy who had to walk back all the way from the Iraqi borders because his brigade forgot to wake him up, the guy with a bullet going through his temple and not affecting his captic and high ass, and the guy who doomed his squad because he threw a brick at an enemy drone for the lulz, giving away the position of all their trenches. War drugs are a blessing, but the scariest one has to be that of a prisoner. They brought him after being in military police custody for a month. Now non-Syrians don't realize this, but if you were caught by the military police, you're as good as dead. They handle all the dangerous inmates, Islamic Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, etc., and are trained to kill without thinking twice. Anyway, Greentext. Late shift about 1 a.m. Guy was brought in an Opel station car. Secret police car and not an ambulance. He's thrown on a couch in the waiting room, seemingly unconscious until he started muttering. Prison doctor who escorted him told us that he was electrocuted and no one knows what happened to him after. We roll him onto a stretcher and took him to the ER. Guy is visibly suffering. He tried to bite my colleague. After a struggle, managed to sedate him. Guy is bruised and visibly tortured, no life-threatening cuts or stab wounds. Panic and run around looking for my tutoring doctor. Go back to the room, everyone is visibly shaken. Friend tells me the poor guy died. Go on with the routine and then everyone goes back to whatever they were doing. Me and my friend decided we'll have a quick nap. This was probably the highlight of the day, and other residents would alert us if shit hits the fan. Wake up about 5 hours later. Talk to a resident who just came to the hospital. Tell him what went down last night. Says he's sorry, offers me a cigarette. Go with him. We meet the guy in charge of the freezer. Says he didn't find the body today. WTF.jpg. Tell him that's idiotic and he's obviously tripping. Guy is visibly disturbed and tired. Also, joking about such subjects can get him in deep shit. Ask around, the body is actually nowhere to be seen. Taboo subject to this day. Most people speculate that the secret police retrieved the body not to cause much fuss at night, even though the security insists no one entered, and definitely no one left with a body. Though it makes sense if he was instructed to lie. I believe it's a cover-up organized with the hospital management. Coincidentally, CCTV wasn't available. Color me surprised. Can't bring it up here in public or among other staff, but me and my colleague believe in this theory.
OC bump from a mobile security guard. I received an alarm call about a late to close, which means a system which is supposed to be armed wasn't on time. It was around midnight. I was directed to a school which I didn't know existed. I pull up and all the windows are boarded up, and there's no one around. The place looked ragged and old, like some shitty school from Detroit. We used a smartphone to Google Maps our way to alarm calls, and I thought it was giving me the wrong place. It was a strange contrast to the nice neighborhood it was in, right across the street, which was all blacked out. Before going in, I wanted to check out the area and make sure it's clear. There was a backpack that was rifled through, on top of a dumpster. A boarded up door with graffiti, probably from a neighbor. I know you kids are still in there making noise. I'll call the cops next time. That graffiti about there still being children inside was spooky. I was in the Halloween X mindset. It felt like an alternate reality with everything being old and locked up. There was only one entrance that was open. Going inside, shutting off the alarm. Because they are armed anyways. There was a radio playing somewhere. It was coming from a gym, which was actually pretty small compared to other schools. The lights turned on when I walked in. The radio was playing Queen songs, pretty nice. The whole school was empty and dark, except for a few rooms which had lights on and janitor equipment. All the chairs and desks were all still there, usually stacked. But the computers were all still in place in the lab. It was like some places were prepared, and others just got up and left like that for years. It was clearly janitors who forgot to arm the system when they left. It's really lame, but going to unfamiliar places in the AM with no backup or weapons to an alarm should put you on edge a bit. My second shorter, shittier story. I received an alarm call about a motion alarm going off in another school at night, closer to Halloween I think. This one was active, and had all sorts of nice decorations on the windows. The gates were closed, and I didn't want to open it just to pull in the car, which would be pointless. I unlocked the main door, then shut off the alarm to have a look around. There was a cartoon ghost on the wall, with a big message. Who is hiding here? It's intended to be festive, and for children. To me it read like a message left behind by some insane guy laying a trap or something. The lights are all off, the hallways are dark. I was given a room number and now had to find it. Suddenly I heard a toilet flush down the hallway. Was it an intruder in the bathroom? I decided to rush in and maybe literally catch someone with their pants down, or maybe scare a janitor, which would be funny. There was nothing. We also have to sign in when we're inside a school, our names and what purpose. What was weird is my boss attended the same alarm on the same date, but technically yesterday due to working nights or something. The end. I don't know what set it off, maybe some hanging decorations moved by the AC in a classroom. The only other thing is going to a shutdown for the night work building at 4 a.m., and encountering a strange man at the end of a hallway. Being out there with no defense, 40 minutes away from the police and ambulance. It was just a worker starting his day early before anyone else. A place like that could be spooky, basically two giant hangar bays, pitch black by yourself.
I just remembered this one. It's a prequel of an earlier post. On the day my mom went to the ER for the last time, I waited with my mom and the rest of the family in a patient room for the doctor to come. In the meantime, they sent a nurse to do blood work on my mom. The nurse complained that this wasn't her normal duty. The nurse looked kind of nervous. She made a mistake and had to draw blood all over again. I was looking for chairs for us to sit in, and a patient in another room said there were some available in there, so I went in and grabbed some and said thanks. Later, a doctor went to see that man. I don't remember what happened exactly, but remember in the end, the doctor asked something to the effect of what was his plan, if he had any relatives, and why he wasn't willing to stay in the hospital. The guy was homeless and had been in the hospital several times before. He didn't want to stay overnight and just asked to be dropped off at a park even though the weather was very chilly. At first, I didn't think much about it. Now I wonder if the homeless guy was afraid of something.
Mom is a night nurse. She's told me some interesting stories. This is just one, unless anyone wants another. Old woman is terminally ill. Dies. They take her body to the morgue or wherever it goes. Room is empty for the rest of the night. Patients have a button they can press that rings for the nurse to come. Mom is with her friend who was in charge of the room where the old woman died earlier. Friend gets a buzz from a patient. It's from the dead old woman's room. Nope, JPE, just check. Come with me, please. Both go check. No one in the room. Spooked.webm. Go back to register. Later that night, buzz again from the same room. I'm not checking.
Of course I want another.
Okie dory, friendo. This one's a little weirder. She told it to me the morning she got back from her shift, and this happened more or less a decade ago, so bear with me. At night, the entire hospital is locked down except for one door guarded by security. No visitors, just security. Nurses, doctors, I think. Patients. Male nurse turns a corner down a hallway. Sees 5 men, not patients, walking down the hall. Hey, what are you doing here? Runs after them, they turn the corner. He looks down the hall they went in and no one is there. High strangeness, Bayang. Goes and tells the other nurses, including Mom. They ask the security guards if anyone was inside. Nope. Decide to check the cameras. Camera shows male nurse running down the hall yelling at someone. No one else was there. Male nurse was alone in the video. In the video, as the nurse runs down the hall light flickers. It flickers 5 times.
I'm so glad you reminded me of my great experiences in an intensive ward couple years back. Saw this firsthand. Recovering from an OD. Nighttime. For more people in our room, all hooked up to machines. I don't know if it's instinct, but all of a sudden my heart started pounding like something was after me. Then could make out footsteps from the hall. Paranoid for some reason. Nurse walks in, slowly scans the room. Pretend to be asleep. Heart monitor over 9,000. Walks to the other end of the room. An elderly lady. Completely senile. The whole waking day before, she'd just laugh in the most horrific manner possible. Almost like she was possessed. Senile people are fun that way. Kept alive via oxygen support, which would make her giggle even more. Okay, tangent over. Back to original story, the nurse walks over to her bedside. Few seconds pass by. All of a sudden her heart monitor stops. He unhooks her support systems. Wheels her out. My heart's pounding like Podesta with a 5-year-old at this point. Think WTF. I always felt sinister about hospitals. Realize all my fears had a basis. Half an hour passes, and I drift back to sleep. They wake me before dawn and move me to another room because I don't know. I still get emotional when I think about that. Do yourself a favor and don't put these pieces together: hospitals, willful cattle, organs, blood rituals, adrenochrome, and well, basically good old human sadism. You'll never set foot in a hospital again. Ignorance is bliss, buddy.
I foster kittens for the local animal shelter and used to be a volunteer assistant for the clinic staff during spay and neuter surgeries when I had free mornings. I would just clean the utensils after each surgery, monitor the animals as they recovered, and help carry the animals to and fro. The clinic room is tucked in the back of the shelter, which is state-of-the-art, opened 2 years ago, I think, after it was decided that the older county shelter in the next town over wasn't going to be able to handle our growing valley community. I was volunteering there before the newer and closer one was opened. Anyways, what I'm getting at is that the whole medical area of the shelter is very controlled and drafts of wind are impossible. The clinic especially. Doors lead to other doors and lead to other doors until you finally get to sunlight. The clinic door is heavy and metal. I mean heavy and thick. It should not move without a light push, and even then it should not swing far without the push being harder. I was facing it because I was watching a vet assistant getting some stuff prepared on a medical table. She basically shaves the genital areas while the registered veterinary technician administers the stuff before the animal is taken into the windowed inner room where the veterinarian performs the surgeries. She was facing me and the door was behind her. Rather unceremoniously, it swung shut from within our clinic. Swung right by the assistant's back. That thick door. We were not so scared since, as I mentioned, there was really no build-up to it, but we couldn't figure out how it could have closed. To make it clear, it swings from inside of the clinic and it is pretty heavy. There are no drafts. This one is more up in the air, but another time as I was dropping off a foster or bring it in for vaccinations, I can't remember, there was a rubbing pressure against my shin as if a dog or cat had brushed by, and I looked down and around to see who was loose, but there was nothing.
I was in the hospital around midnight. This was 2 years ago. Eating in the lobby. See someone wandering in, late 20s, early 30s girl. She was blank, staring at walls and plants. Casually slowly goes over to where I'm sitting. WTF, I don't need this RN. Eventually stands 5 feet away and stares at me. She has a strange stillness about her, no effect, a negative sign of schizo or something not right. She starts saying something weird like, "Why don't the nurses help me? I just need to talk to the nurse." I'm spooked and watching her body language for an attack. She waits for me to respond after rambling, and I point at the security guard desk about 30 yards away and say they can help you. She is more insistent, so I repeat myself, keep eating, on the phone to appear busy. She eventually wanders towards security. High strangeness. The look on her face was of incredible fatigue and absolutely no expression whatsoever, with dark circles around her eyes. Her skin was very pale, like from fear. Wearing normal street clothes. I thought she was going to stab me.
Working a job as a driver's helper for a trucking company. Shift starts at 1:30 a.m. Our routine is to leave the lot, drive into New York City, which is about an hour away, pick up our load at the warehouse there, and then head back to make our rounds of deliveries over the next 8 hours. 2 months into this job, dead of winter. Dude driving telling me about how you see all sorts of weird and crazy shit on the road at night, crashes he's seen, crackheads he's dealt with. As we are driving, he randomly says something along the lines of how he has not seen a fatal accident in a while. About 30 or 40 minutes later, we passed a wreck on the side of the road. Some sort of Porsche is hugging a big oak tree with its roof and is now the shape of a U. Head crush maximum. JPG. First responders have the scene taped off and under control, basically just milling around waiting for equipment to arrive so they can extract the human smoothie remains. Based on the activity at the scene, the crash likely happened right about the time my coworker/driver mentioned how he hadn't seen a fatal wreck in a while. We both note this, and he says he has no idea why the idea popped into his head so suddenly. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch. But based on the response time of EMS and what they were doing at the scene, it puts the crash at the same time my coworker was mentioning fatal crashes.
Kinda lame, but happened to me the other day. Working night shift security at a furniture warehouse. A coworker from my prior shift let me know he was hearing noises and that he was spooked. He goes home and I'm left to hold down the fort for the night. A few hours in, I hear one of the rear exit doors being pushed on. Can hear the handle be jiggled. Thank God it's locked. JPG. Probably just a homeless dude. The rest of the night is just random tapping sounds. Automatic sensor lights randomly turn on. I'm spooked. Next morning, supervisor comes to relieve me. Tell him that I heard a homeless dude trying to get in. I'll run back to the cameras, go home and get some sleep. Next night, show up to relieve the supervisor from his shift. So I went through the footage last night. I saw you get up and check the doors when you heard them being messed with, but there's nothing on the exterior camera. A few nights later, I would periodically hear a gonging sort of sound, very low and consistent. At first I rationalized it as one of the passing trains, but not only did the sounds not line up, but it didn't matter where I was in the warehouse, it sounded the same volume.
Once I had this lady with her dead baby come to the ER. She was obviously shocked and in denial because she told all the staff to tell her that her baby was in fact alive and had nothing wrong and was just sleeping. I had to manage my way to take him out of her to check him and get her on some anxiolytics because she wouldn't let anyone take the baby from her. Like 30 minutes after she came to the ER, the EMTs arrived and told us that they got a call that morning and went to that woman's house. And the baby was already dead and probably died during the night. She was over-aggressive with them because her baby was alive and they were talking bullshit.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.